sort of stalwarts in the astronomical community who would say, actually, I think there's a Planet X body out there and it's worth investigating. Even at the point sort of around about 1990 or 85 through 90, after the sort of Nemesis idea had come forward, where NASA in general was coming down on that idea like a ton of bricks, really. And he was still saying, no, I think it's out there. And he actually got involved in, I'm not sure you're aware about this, but the Pioneer probes that have left the sort of planetary solar system and are moving beyond towards the fringes of the solar system, they've been found to be slowing down. Are you aware about that, Kerry?
Oh no, I didn't hear about that. They've been slowing down. Yeah, that's fascinating.
And it's something that was picked up by the scientists. Obviously, these probes aren't sending photographs back anymore. They're so far away from the sun, they're running out of battery energy. But what they do is they sort of send back a pulse every so often, which sort of gives an idea of the fact that they're still alive and where they are, so that the NASA can kind of keep an idea of their progress. And as they cross through various solar system barriers, like something called the heliopause, they can determine some extra science about the very outer reaches of the solar system. So even though they're sort of twice as far away from us as Pluto, you know, they're still useful. But recently, a few years ago now, NASA determined that they were actually slowing down, and they were moving away from us at a rate much slower than had been anticipated. And two of the probes were affected, and also maybe a couple of other probes in the solar system. And it caused a great scratching of heads because the anomaly was not explainable in terms of normal physics.
That's absolutely fascinating. Now, I'm sure you have some theories about this. What comes to mind for me is this notion that Paul LaViolette talks about, which is a super wave. In other words, if they were having to go against some kind of force or force field that suddenly they encountered out there. Is that possible?
Well, I know of Paul LaViolette, and I don't know that much about his. I think he does quite a lot of work on quasars and things like that, doesn't he? I seem to remember. I've seen a lecture by him once. Certainly, some sort of force field would inevitably slow these things down, but one would anticipate you'd actually sort of stop them. Whereas these things actually seem to be slowing down, and it was almost like there was an extra gravitational pull somewhere that was preventing them from moving away as fast as they should. And the interesting thing about that was that JPL were on the case with that, and John Anderson in particular, he was one of the people who actually came forward and said, well, look, you know, maybe it's something to do with an extra planet in the solar system, you see. So, you know, this was a few years ago, but he was still around saying this. And so JPL, I would say, are quite open to this idea. And now they've got this probe looking out into the solar system called WISE, which is the new infrared sky search, which is really, 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 really sensitive, very, very good. And it's picking up loads of asteroids and all kinds of things at the moment. And one of the things they're hoping to find is a brown dwarf in the solar system. And again, the people at JPL seem to be in the forefront of interest in this field. And I think it's Dr. David Kirkpatrick, if memory serves me well, who's a brown dwarf expert who seems to have been brought into the team with the idea of discovering this thing. Now, if you and I are right, and Mr. Neumann is right, and there is already knowledge of the dark star, which is what I posit in my novels, then you have to question why they'd be doing it in this back. Why don't they just come forward and say, look, you know, here we are, here's the knowledge. It seems to be a sort of a back-to-front way of doing things, but it may well be that there is a scientific rear guard of people who are aware, have been made aware of something very secret, and they want it out there. And they are trying to work very, very hard to make that discovery and present it to the public, despite the fact that it may be something that's been known about for 20, 30 years already. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to present these ideas in my book, you see.
Okay, well, yes. I mean, and I have to say, in working at JPL, and there is more than one level obviously, to JPL as there is to other aerospace companies. This is the issue, really, when we talk about the secret space program. I mean, there are a part that are participating in the know, so to speak, and there are parts that are not. But I think that the notion that there's actually two space programs going along simultaneously, and one is completely unaware of the other, at least the most superficial level is. And then the sort of the deeper you go, sort of like anything, into the rabbit hole, the more you get individuals who, let's say, are working on the sort of the slow train, which would be the one that deals with the public on any level and is doing supposed, building, I call them tin cans to Mars and things.
Yeah.
And in which astronauts are being sacrificed, basically, because the darker and deeper program is completely aware of technology that would alleviate any of the problems and certainly change the type of craft that's being used, period, of the other. But what they're doing is they started out with the subterfuge, possibly to do with, and if you talk to, I don't know if you've ever interacted with Rich Dolan and he's the historian, who was a Rhodes Scholar and has written UFOs in the National Security State. But he's talking a lot about basically the notion of secrecy and why it even occurred. Yeah. So some of that came from the idea of supposed, national security and interests of that nature. That again is still another superficial level of the onion, because on a deeper level, we're talking about something that has been engineered from the beginning and this is where we get back to your theories. We're talking about, kind of a master race, in essence, that has, bioengineered, or genetically engineered humanity, certainly screwed with humanity, affected us in certain ways, and perhaps been the rulers of, or so-called rulers of this planet during a certain period of time. And depending on who I talk to, there are different theories on all of this, but this is what you're positing in your book. And then what you're actually doing, and I was really stunned to see, is that you're actually allowing them to inhabit what are in essence humanoid bodies, at this time, in essence being here. Because one of the things that we are very aware of is that there seems to be a notion that if the Anunnaki are supposedly not here any longer, that they, one, may be coming back, and two, that they may actually still be here in the guise of various people that are sort of behind the scenes, working as consultants and in black projects and so on and so forth. Yeah. So where did you've obviously made a choice, and it may be partially because you're writing a fictional vehicle, but I'm just wondering, what's your commitment to the notion that the Anunnaki are here?
Well, I think there's a very good possibility that they are, because it's not clear to me at what point they decided to just jack it all in and leave. In Sitchin's work, going back to that as a sort of a core sort of writing about the Anunnaki, which is effectively what he's done is he's taken the writings of the earliest people in Mesopotamia and said, look, instead of looking at this from a purely mythical point of view, you need to take it literally. And when they're talking about the gods coming down from heaven and intermingling amongst humans and so on, that was really what was occurring on a literal level. And for that to have happened, and you look at the sort of stela or the drawings that were produced by those people, the Anunnaki look very, very similar to us. They are hominids, they're humanoids. They look bigger than we are, and that may well be because they're given That may well be because they're given sort of majesty and importance by the people who are drawing the pictures, so they're highlighted as being larger. And indeed, they may well have been larger than us. But essentially, they're very human in appearance. And of course, in the Bible,